everyone. Thanks so much for joining our SiteCheck Q3 Malware Trends Report webinar. My name is Rianna MacLeod. I'm from Victoria, BC, Canada, and I'm a marketing manager here at Sucuri and GoDaddy. I've been with Sucuri since 2017. I was a technical writer for this report. It was a great project to work on. I'm excited to share our findings with you today. We put this report together to shed some light on some of the most common malware infections detected on websites with our remote scanner, SiteCheck. So I hope you find this webinar helpful and informative. And make sure you stick around for the end and bring your website malware questions to participate in our Q&A period with senior malware researcher Denise Naguka. Now, before I dive into the data, I feel that I should open with an important caveat. Conducting an external website scan with a service like SiteCheck is one of the quickest and easiest ways to help identify security issues. But since it's only able to scan at the client level, it could miss something that's lurking server-side. Things like website backdoors or malicious PHP scripts or other malware that's lurking in the database that isn't detected front of site. So when we're talking about the data in this report, we're really focusing on infections that were detected with an external SiteCheck scan on the client side of a website. Also, our latest report contains all sorts of details about block listing and common security problems. But in today's webinar, I'm just focusing on SiteCheck and website malware. So now that we have that out of the way, let's get started. In the third quarter of 2022, SiteCheck performed a total of 23,473,621 website scans. And from this number, 260,101 infections were detected. Now, we know that infections can occur for a myriad of reasons, but the end result may be that the hacker exploits a site for its server, SEO, or other resources. And our team took a look at some of the most common SiteCheck signatures to try to pinpoint what types of malware were most commonly detected during a remote scan. The results were not entirely surprising. As seen in past reports, SEO spam was the most common infection in our remote scan data, followed by injected malware. SEO spam infections also happen to be one of the most common types of malware found during remediation cleanup. And since these infections can allow an attacker to piggyback off a site's search rankings, they can be extremely valuable for hackers who are looking to promote their own spam pages and keywords. And if a site gets infected with SEO spam, the result can be unwanted spam content that's peppered throughout the site. You might also find malicious redirects to spam websites via spam comments, link injections, or even new posts and pages. We've observed three common approaches used to inject SEO spam on websites. Firstly, HTML code injections for concealed elements in plugin, theme files, or even into legitimate database entries. Also, fake spam posts that are injected into the CMS database. Or thirdly, doorway pages for spam content that are created on the fly. SiteCheck saw a total of 119,865 detections for SEO spam last quarter. That accounted for 46.08% of all infections. And when Google and other search authorities detect a spam infection or other harmful code on a website, they'll often downgrade its rankings and reduce organic traffic until the issue is resolved. This can lead to blocklisting and malicious software warnings from Google, so you're going to want to take steps to protect your site from SEO spam infections. Next, let's take a closer look at some of the types of spam that were most commonly detected by SiteCheck. Keyword spam was the top offender here. And when we're talking about keyword spam, we're referring to things like dating or adult websites, pharmaceutical drugs, essay services, and replica knockoff products. Attackers use cloaking techniques to manipulate search rankings and display keywords or content to search engines that may be completely unrelated to the original website. Cloaking might show spam links to Google while serving the original site content to website visitors. Or the attacker scripts might just insert keywords or spam content that's displayed only to search engine user agents. As an example, here's a small snippet of cloaked pharma spam. The website pages themselves won't contain this snippet, and visitors aren't going to see it either. But when a search engine crawls a page, it will find this cloaked pharma spam and pollute search engine results that end up looking a little something like this. And while Google still links to legitimate website pages, when people click on them, they're going to simply be redirected to the counterfeit drugstore website, and the original website itself won't get any of the search traffic. Like I mentioned earlier, this can really damage your website rankings and organic traffic if left untreated. So you're going to want to keep an eye out and practice good website hardening techniques. We'll get to that in a little bit, but let's take a look at our spam categories again. Hidden content was the runner-up here in terms of most common type of SEO spam. And this is different from keyword spam in the sense that when SiteCheck detects hidden content, it identifies some black hat SEO techniques that are concealing spam within a legitimate web page, rather than the spam itself. And one of the most common techniques used last quarter was associated with concealing spam links within a div tag. And here's an example of what that might look like. Basically, an attacker creates a div 1 pixel high and then injects a bunch of spam links into this tiny tag. You might find it on a compromised site as a div style overflow, hidden height 1 pixel. And this super small div makes it so that attackers' spam links aren't visible to site visitors unless they inspect the code, but search engines will see them. And I wouldn't recommend getting any clever ideas about implementing these techniques on your website, because if Google detects hidden links or text in your content that's designed to manipulate search rankings, this could be seen as a deceptive practice and a violation of their webmaster guidelines, and rankings could be negatively affected. The last 3 spam categories detected last quarter were all related to specific types of SEO spam: Japanese SEO spam, gambling, and escort service spam. And these spam infections are pretty self-explanatory. They pollute a site's search results for keywords and spam content for their services. And there wasn't anything exceptionally remarkable to mention about these infections this quarter. But if your search results for your site happen to look a little something like this and you don't offer Japanese localization, it may indicate a compromise. Next on the list is injected malware. 27% of website infections were detected as malware injection last quarter by SiteCheck. And malware injections are defined as malicious external script injections, iframes, inline scripts, and excludes anything that was flagged as SEO spam. One malware injection of significant note was the ongoing Sucuri malware campaign that was reported by Denise Sinagupta earlier this year. This malware accounted for over 30% of injections last quarter, and it was among one of the top infections that Sucuri's remediation cleaned in Q3. The Sucuri malware campaign uses JavaScript to display fake notices for people to update their browser. But in reality, they're duping victims into downloading a remote access Trojan, which can allow an attacker to gain full access and remotely control an infected computer. That includes mouse and keyboard control, file access, network resource access, making it much easier for the hacker to bypass security and authentication controls. And this malware has also been used as part of the first stage in ransomware attacks against large corporations. NDSW, which Denise also reported on earlier this year, happens to be a variant of Sucuri malware, which SiteCheck detected 20,978 times on infected websites in Q3 alone. And what differentiates NDSW from so-called vanilla Sucuri code is that the malware references an NDSW variable that's seen at the top left of the slide here, and it contains a custom wrapper that's used to dynamically serve the malicious injection through a PHP proxy. The malware is designed to hijack your website visitors and redirect them to the attacker's site, where they're prompted to download a malicious browser update. And it typically acts in 2 stages. First, malicious JavaScript's injected into HTML or appended to the bottom of every JavaScript file. And the second layer is found in the NDSX payload, which is fetched by a malicious PHP script that's usually found in some random directory somewhere on the hacked site. Regardless of these technical details, the infections are especially dangerous for both webmasters and website visitors. And yet another notable malware injection campaign that was reported by Ben Martin was found targeting WordPress websites to serve fake DDoS notifications like this one. Victims see a dialog appear on the screen, prompting them to click for DDoS protection. And since these types of browser checks are so common, a lot of users might not even think twice before clicking the prompt to access the website. And the reality is that clicking on this malicious notification actually initiates a download for a file directly onto the victim's computer. And that's then followed by a prompt to open the file and enter a verification to access the site. Unfortunately, as verified by Jerome Segura over at Malwarebytes, the file is actually a remote access Trojan known as Net Support Rat. And it also happens to install a piece of malware known as Raccoon Stealer, a malware as a service tool used for stealing crypto wallets, browser cookies, autofill data, passwords, and credit card details. These endpoint infections can also be the first phase of a ransomware or banking account attack. It's definitely nasty stuff, and these injections really highlight the importance of hardening your website against infections. Following malware injections, we have defacements, which accounted for 1.23% of detected infections last quarter. Now, defacements are defined as attacks that lead to visual changes of a website's page, similar to graffiti or vandalism. And like the image shown on the slide, you might navigate to your site one day only to find your homepage looks a lot different. And attackers might be motivated to deface a website to make political or religious statements, or they might be simply getting their jollies and wreaking havoc on an environment for fun. Fourth on the list was unwanted ads, which amounted to 0.98% of detected infections last quarter. This category basically encompasses any advertisement, tracker, or site pop-up that's displayed without full consent of the webmaster. And one common example of unwanted ads, with 1,036 detections seen last quarter, were these linker injections. These scripts are injected into a website via malicious browser extensions. Those extensions might even perform useful functions, but in reality, they're serving malware. And the injection usually occurs when a site owner edits a post or a page using the WYSIWYG editor and happens to have the malicious extension installed in their browser. Scripts are secretly added to the bottom of posts, which overlay trackers and unwanted ads onto the website in the process. Last but not least, we have credit card stealers. Also known as MageCart, skimmer malware was detected on 1,902 websites last quarter. These detections were spread across 59 different variants, and they impacted ultra-popular WordPress, Magento, and OpenCart CMSs. Since SiteCheck only scans on the client side for malware, a large number of credit card stealers are not included here in these datasets. Many credit card infections can also be found on the server level as PHP file modifications or database injections, and those aren't going to be detected with a remote scan. That's why services that offer server-side scanning are really important. It's also worth noting that it's not typical for the same credit card skimmer to be found on thousands of websites. Since they're often highly targeted and customized campaigns, malware may be handcrafted for just one or a small handful of websites. So we talked a whole lot about some of the most common threats that SiteCheck detected in the past quarter. But what about how to protect against all this malware? The harsh reality is that security is never 100%. So there are always risks associated with running a website. And furthermore, the more plugins and extensible components that you have on your website, the more attack vectors there are available for bad actors. So in essence, website security is really all about risk reduction. And as you add more layers of protection on your website, you're going to be enhancing the security of your environment. Let's go over a handful of best practices and hardening techniques that you can apply to your site to help reduce your risk of malware. First and foremost, do yourself a big favor, keep all of your website software patched with the latest updates to the greatest extent possible. In certain situations, you're going to need to make an assessment prior to downloading a patch. Software you want to keep up to date includes core CMS, plugins, themes, and other extensible components. Attackers use automated scripts to scan the interwebs for vulnerable websites. So regardless if you have 100 site visitors a month or 100 million, hackers are going to be on the lookout for known vulnerabilities, and patching can really help mitigate this. Secondly, use strong, unique passwords for all of your accounts. That includes SFTP, database credentials, admin logins, you name it. It should be unique, unpredictable, and long. That means don't use password 123, don't reuse passwords for your accounts. You can try including combinations of special characters, numbers, upper and lowercase letters to improve entropy. Password managers can be useful to generate and securely store your passwords as well. Thirdly, get some 2FA on your admin panels. Administrator panel compromises are among some of the most common attacks that everyday WordPress websites face. So by adding multi-factor authentication to your panel, you're going to be taking an important step in preventing brute force and password attacks. This can be accomplished by installing a reputable WordPress 2FA plugin or using the Sucuri firewall to enable functionality on your website. Fourthly, use SSL certificates to encrypt data as it moves between your visitor's browser and your web server. SSL cannot protect a website from malware infection, but it's important for protecting server-client communication and essential for PCI compliance or any website that handles sensitive form data, credit card information, passwords, user identification. And besides, search engines also use SSL in website rankings, so it's really important for SEO too. Fifthly, place your website behind a web application firewall. In fact, Some firewalls, like the Sucuri firewall, can help mitigate known website vulnerabilities via virtual patching. And furthermore, you're going to be able to leverage protected pages to restrict access to only certain IPs. And most importantly, firewalls can help protect your site from attack by inspecting and filtering out malicious packets. That means reduced risk of things like brute force attacks, bad bots, and DDoS. Finally, consider leveraging a file integrity monitoring tool. Although it might not be feasible for all environments, file integrity can help in some websites to identify security issues and potential indicators of compromise by scanning and verifying the integrity of your website files. And if you find malware on your website, don't panic. Just reach out to your favorite website security service provider for assistance to get the infection cleaned up as soon as possible. And that about wraps up my webinar presentation.